Hey, everybody, this is Barry Mankin with the Holistic Home Health Podcast. We're here in Nashville, Tennessee, and we have a wonderful treat today. This is the first time we've done this year, and we're bringing in some buddies, and we're going to talk shop about the same industry here. So I've got Ryan Rice with Tennessee Mold Inspectors here, and I've got Cody Farrell here with IAQ Tennessee. And we're just going to have a wonderful conversation. We're going to have a two-part series on the industry, how it looks here in Nashville. And I just want to welcome you guys and tell you thanks for coming.
Yeah, appreciate you bringing us in.
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. It's a little bit of a rainy day today, and it's kind of a perfect way to just kind of get settled in by the fire. You know, it's nice and warm. First of all, let's just, ask you guys, why don't you start, Cody, about your business, how you got started in this industry, and what you're passionate about.
Yeah, it was kind of not planned to get into this industry. I got a biology degree when I was in college and, had plans to go to, physical therapy school or something of that nature. And then, my dad was like, you got to get a job right outside of college. It's like, okay. And worked at an environmental laboratory right out the gate, and was an analytical chemist for a few years. Got to learn the ins and outs of the laboratory environment. Didn't like being stuck inside, and so I got into construction, working with my hands, and learned how homes were built and constructed, down from pouring foundations to doing roofing and everything in between. And then got into inspecting after that, and who knew there was a perfect mix of the biology and the building science and things of that nature. And it's been a blessing to have that kind of background, and it just kind of perfectly steered me into this industry. It's been really cool.
Yeah, very, very familiar. Ryan?
Yeah, so I kind of stumbled into this industry. I'm sure you guys have this question a lot from customers. They're like, hey, how did you end up in this? You're waiting for some air samples to go, and they're like, hey, what brought you into this? So I actually got into this because my brother does this down in Texas.
Oh, okay.
So,
very cool.
Yeah, he's licensed down there. He's a mold assessment consultant. And a little background on me is I went to school for nutrition. I guess I'm a former dietitian now. For about a decade or a little bit more. I worked as a dietitian, performance dietitian. So my background's in, call it biology, but nutritional sciences, chemistry, all that type of good stuff. And so my brother was doing it. And while I was working up at Fort Campbell as a performance dietitian for the Special Forces, my brother was like, hey, why don't you dabble in this a little bit? Start to see if there's an opportunity up there in Tennessee. And so I started to do that. And the more I did it, the more I figured out, hey, this is something I could possibly do. I was doing it to somewhat complement, my 40-hour-a-week job.
Yeah.
And then I went down to Texas and got my license down there. So I'm actually a licensed mold assessment consultant down in Texas as well.
Okay.
And that's the top level of essentially mold inspector in Texas.
Right.
And so I became a business owner, right? So I opened up Tennessee Mold Inspectors, and I've been doing this a little over 5 years.
Yeah, good for you. Wonderful. Awesome. Tell me about your business model. Like whenever you walk into a home, and we're just going to start with mold.
Sure.
It's so prevalent here, but tell me, how do you approach things? Somebody calls on the phone, hey, I got a problem. Whether they think it's mold or not, and how do you start with a house just to kind of get a sense of what's going on?
Well, I think the first of it for me is I talk with the client, like, why are you calling me today? And going to get their perspective on things and see what they actually really want to test for. And then we just kind of look at the property as a whole, because we all know that mold is sourced around moisture, and if we can pinpoint the moisture source, whether it be high humidity or actual water intrusion, then we can kind of find the source of the issue there.
Right.
But yeah, every house is different. It's all case by case scenario, and really just trying to make sure we do our due diligence and help out the client properly.
Yeah.
Not every house needs the same scheme of testing,
Right.
and so it's independent on what we find during the inspection and what's going to be best for the client as well.
Do you get into doing any sampling while you're inspecting, or do you try to look at what you need first and then you assess what kind of sampling you're going to get into, or you try to do it at the same time?
I try to do it at the same time. Just it saves time during the day
Sure.
for inspecting too, because the samples, they take 10 minutes. If we're taking air samples, but
Yeah.
tape lifts are pretty much instant. So that does help out if we can pinpoint what the needs are of the client quickly. But then we kind of use the inspection to kind of dictate where we take samples and how many
Sure.
and what types as well. So depending on what we find.
Yeah. Good. Wonderful. What about you? Whenever a client calls, what does it look like?
Yeah, similar information. Trying to figure out what's going on there, what their needs are. When I get to the house, as you guys have probably dealt with, a lot of times you got a client that's like, hey, I'm just trying to figure out what's going on here. So you may need to go through every square inch of the home. Other times it's like, hey, we've had this leak. And so you're able to focus in on specific areas. Of course, you're going to hit the other places as well. So like Cody said, it's a case-by-case basis. Go in there, really look at what their needs are, focus in based on what it is, or like I said, kind of, spread it evenly throughout the house. I do testing typically at the end because I find out where the mold's located. There are customers at the front end. They're like, hey, I want you to go ahead and test in these locations. So I will do those as I'm passing through those zones or through those different rooms. But typically I'll follow up with the client and say, hey, here's areas where we suspect mold. We see water damage. Hey, or you mentioned that you're having symptoms when you stay in this room. Would you like to test in these different locations?
Wonderful.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, it's similar, but yeah, I would say, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Have you guys ever encountered other guys in the industry or heard either, different states or something like that to where they actually just do sampling and they don't even look at the house? I've seen that a lot.
There are some companies I know that do that. They're not doing their customers their due diligence. I think that I kind of correlate when I'm talking to a client. It's like a physician only looking at somebody's blood work without actually doing a physical on them. You can only tell so much from looking at just the sample data. There's so much utility in the actual inspection to try to pinpoint what the actual environment looks like.
Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah. Once you speak to that.
Yeah.
As well.
And I was going to say, I guess I'm guilty of that because I go into people's places all the time and I just do testing. Now, some of that may be because there's someone who is in an apartment, right? And they're like, hey, I just want to know what the environment's like. I want to be able to have some empirical data that I can provide to the landlord, or hey, we see this mold here,
right?
And I may do a little mini inspection during that time. But I guess I'd say I'm guilty as charged with that. But I don't do that when someone wants a full inspection. I definitely do a full inspection, but I provide clients with that option if that's what they're looking for, just for a testing.
Yeah, there's a utility in that. If, like you said, a client that is renting and they need hard data to prove a point, then there's a use for information
budget
like that.
too.
Yeah, or budgetary.
Budget
Yes,
dictates that.
100%.
Yeah, and sometimes I run into that as well, where people are like, "Hey, I can't afford the inspection." It's like, well, hey, here's an option. It'll give you the lab data, and I draw the line. I'm like, hey, this isn't going to be for the full inspection, but we're going to have this lab data, so it'll give you an understanding of what's going on. With the inspection, it's very comprehensive, and then we complement that with the testing. But I do offer testing as a standalone in some situations.
I love that you guys are versatile with that, and I love that it sounds like we're all very well like-minded in that because. I am a firm believer in the more information or more data that you get to build a case, if you will, the more holistic look at the approach from different vantage points, whether that's from sampling, whether that's moisture reading, whether that's the visual inspection, looking at the house and trying to understand the building science, what's going on, so that we can get to those root issues. Whatever they can afford to do, we want to be able to provide that service. The way we do that, or the way we define it from a business model standpoint, we offer 3 packages. Basically, we have a limited, other than like a PRV, we have a limited where we'll just come in and we're going to give them just a few samples, and then we're going to look at a localized area. But it's limited to that. We define that on a report. They usually get a letter instead of a full report.
Right.
something like that. And that way we address the area of concern only. And then we may, give them some tips and, some other things that are helpful for general IAQ and all that.
Yeah.
Then we have a baseline that we do where we're going to get into air sampling and add on any other of those concerns that are moisture related, typically, or history of moisture. And again, this is just for mold, but like we'll still look at other potential contaminants, whether it's carbon emissions, if we smell something, if there's, I forgot to tell you about such and such, because the initial probe on the front end and asking a lot of good questions, we find so much that's like, oh, okay, you need actually this, not this, or we shift it a little bit on the fly to say, well, maybe I'll do a few more of these and less of these, and you may think about a formaldehyde test or something. So we have to be versatile, but to be able to offer that package and to value the whole house being looked at least as an option, I think is huge, because I see so many people in the industry that just don't do it or provide, like they don't want to go in the crawl space. They don't want to go in the attic space.
Or
right?
they only take air samples.
Yeah. And they said, okay, your house is mold free.
Yeah. Yeah, I've run into
No such thing.
customers that they're like, hey, typically just whatever, 2,500 square foot home, I'm there 2 hours plus or minus just a little bit, right? But I've had people come in and they're like, yeah, the last guy who came out, he was here for 25 minutes and this was much more comprehensive.
Yeah,
and so it's
exactly.
like, wow, man, sorry that there's people out there doing that. But
Right.
Yeah. And it's setting expectations and defining limitations, I think, is something that we preach all the time. And most clients that I see have either read some stuff or heard something from their buddies or whatever, like, hey, they just want to check a box. Is there mold or not? Well, I mean, or can you just do an air quality test? Well, what does that mean?
And what are you looking for?
Yeah,
here?
like
Yeah.
that's a big subject.
Yeah,
What parameter would you like me to test for and charge you for, right?
definitely.
So anyway, I see that stuff all the time, and I love that we're like-minded in that and looking at that whole house thing, because I think that's huge. And like Cody, at least on my end, I'm from the home inspection industry as well, construction background, et cetera. And this was a natural progression for me as well. Everything was hurting, from construction and, breaking down and, I got more gray hair than you guys, but, a little older. But anyway, the idea is that the home inspection side was a natural progression, and I was just bored, honestly, because like it's the same thing, over and over, and it's important. It's not that it's not important, but when you get into building science and get into like, hey, let's help people with a purpose with their health, and you find out people are suffering in their home, and you understand that a little bit better, you're going, oh, that's purpose.
Yeah.
I got better purpose now,
Yeah, I would say especially going from the home inspection side of things, and being now an environmentalist coming to somebody's home, they want me there, and they're happy I'm there because I'm going to give them answers and information that's going to help them out with their health or just a general, I don't know, betterment of their home. And it's just a much better and more rewarding feeling, just day in and day out, and it's exciting because like we do get to come across and a client like, I've had 10 inspectors here. Nobody can figure out what the issue is. And then we get to come in and find it.
Yeah.
And that's fun.
It's satisfying.
It is.
It's kind of, I tell everybody, it's kind of sadistic too. Like we find bad things. We're like, yes. Oh, I'm so sorry. I mean, like, aren't you happy? Yeah. Okay. All right. We're good. All right. And they're like, how much is that going to cost? I don't know. So anyway, but there is a level of satisfaction there when you have purpose and you're actually helping people and there's health issues. That's the best. It's like, well, there you go. It's never, I tell everybody all the time, never a silver bullet, right? It's always a combination. That's what we find anyway. It's percentages of influences usually. I mean, is that what you guys see?
Yeah.
Typically?
Definitely. Yep.
Yeah. Very rarely it's just one thing.
Yeah. Because there's so many levels of this.
Oh yeah.
Let's just talk about the industry itself, because we kind of touched on it a little bit. What are you seeing in the industry, positive and negative, right? I mean, what do you like how things are moving Obviously, we're trying to create something here in our town and do things with a certain philosophy, which is why we're showcasing this. But what are you seeing happening in the industry, both practices that are being done or things that are being, I guess, explored that may help broaden our scope of what we do and maybe give more of that holistic look that you think is helpful? And then, maybe some of the things that you see that have been detrimental, which I'm sure we can speak to all day.
You want to go first?
Yeah. So something that I think is, I think there's a future in this, but the nut hadn't been cracked yet. Is mycotoxins, right? We can test.
Oh yeah, big category. Yeah,
Yeah,
That's what I was going to touch on.
yeah. So we can test for mycotoxins. As you all know, there hasn't been a solution for ridding a home or an environment of the mycotoxins. Now, there's value in doing the testing, especially with individuals who are having health issues or they've identified that there's mycotoxins on their body from a health professional. So there's value in that. I guess the dark spot is that there's not a solution for that. I think in the future there will be. There's various different techniques and methods out there that are available that do mitigate some of the levels. I actually had one very interesting client. I went out to his house 3 or 4 times to do mycotoxin testing, but he was a very scientific DIY type of guy. Mm-hmm. And he researched the various different, there's like chlorine dioxide, mm-hmm. there's the hydrogen peroxide, right? The
ionized hydrogen peroxide.
Yeah. So he ran all these different, he ran like 3 different methods by himself. He bought the equipment, bought the chemicals, and he did it all himself. And we checked and watched the reductions. We had these enumerations over time, mm-hmm. and it was very interesting to see that. None of those were complete reductions, but it was neat to see, okay, this specific product brought these mycotoxins down X amount. This one mycotoxin was elevated. He came back in and did another technique. It's like, mm-hmm. oh, okay, it brought some of these down. But once again, it wasn't a complete elimination.
Right.
I'm looking forward to, in the industry, once that nut gets cracked, that's because really at the end of the day, mold, yeah, we can have some allergy-like symptoms from mold, but the main health concern is mycotoxins. So those are mm-hmm. what those mycotoxin-producing mold spores produce, and those can impact our health. They're carcinogenic. And mm-hmm. so once that thing gets cracked, then I think that's going to open up just a lot of stuff and a lot of answers for the customers out there that we're wishing that we had today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for you kids at home, mycotoxins, if you haven't looked at other podcasts from earlier, that's a defense mechanism for certain types of molds that have chemical properties to it. We'll just say it's not biological once it exudes from that spore. So it becomes toxic. So those are the ones that everybody talks about, the black mold, those have a name. And so each one of those has specific characteristics. There's arguments in the community about all of these things, both on the diagnostic end, which is what we're in, and on the solutions end. And so you have to look for what the motivation is. That's the key. Everybody goes to solution first, right? Everybody wants to just say, okay, you just check that box. It's not that easy, okay? And we're dealing with microscopic things that are beyond 0.1 microns, right? It's small. So we can see a spore easier than we could see a mycotoxin, which is why it's a whole other category, whole other price points, special labs, et cetera. And it's an interesting topic, to your point. Like I think there's just, we're going to be experimenting with that for a little bit. Hopefully within a few years we might have a handle on that.
Yeah, hopefully.
At least in our industry.
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah. And like once you get into the mycotoxin realm, then there's endotoxins and actinobacteria and like all of that stuff. And
those need to be defined well for
sure.
They
do.
Yeah.
And I think that's where this industry for us is going to be trending in that direction.
Absolutely.
Still, there's going to be a utility in like the spore trap sampling and tapeless and swabs and ATVs and all that kind of stuff as a tool. But being able to pinpoint what the real, toxic load is of a home is really going to be more granular in that spectrum.
Well, and the other aspect of that is like as soon as you open that door, what's coming in? And that's both from a because mycotoxins exist outside. Yeah, it's natural. It's certain ones, but with that, we don't even know what we would call a baseline in the industry,
Sure.
which is a whole other argument of things. But what that really is expected for your climate, right, outside to say, okay, if I open the door, what should I expect for that toxic load or that biological load that's going to come into the house? The ERMIs, we've talked about that, which we can talk about as well. But same kind of thing. You clean a house to a point, and it's clean, and you've done either an ERMI, you've done a mycotoxin test, and you're like, this is as good as we're going to get it. 2 weeks later, you're going to fail an ERMI score.
You would.
Just by living in the house. And it's going to tell you, oh my gosh, you got to remediate, you've got to tear your house down or whatever. And it's literally just, whatever's been brought into that house within 2 weeks, no sources. I've seen that time and time again. Same kind of thing. So, I mean, which
I'm sure,
segues to whatever.
I'm sure we get asked, I do, to take an ERMI for a lot of clients or to review ERMIs because their healthcare practitioner has told them to do that. And, it's a data point.
It is.
That could be useful in addition to better data points. And it's still a tool.
Do you guys do them? Do you guys in your business? Do you guys do them in your business model?
Yeah, I'll do them. I like to push the client in the direction of the EMA. So if we're going to do a dust sample, I always say, hey,
a little bit better.
I like this one. If you're adamant about a dust sample, let's consider this one. But if they just want to do an ERMI, we'll definitely do an ERMI. And I mean, if you guys want to talk about it, we can kind of define the differences between the ERMI and the EMA and the score and whatnot. But I feel like the EMA is a little bit more straightforward. There's not a score that kind of leads us off to believe that something's going on. So.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I think that the EMA is a more focused test. And it has more utility because it focuses on the 15 different mold species that could produce mycotoxins, and then it also does analysis on mycotoxins, which it's great to know. From what I've heard with healthcare practitioners, they see the ERMI and they're like, oh, these are mycotoxin producing molds, so there's mycotoxins in your house, which is not true. Necessarily,
right?
Like you said,
or there's sources, and it's like you had a problem in there. You got to get out of there.
But like you said earlier, it's the release of mycotoxins is a defense mechanism by those molds. It has to have a certain circumstance for this to be released, and so actually having viable testing metrics to confirm if they're present or not is very, very necessary.
Yeah. At the end of the day, we're trying to justify an action for them.
Yes.
Right? And that action has a cost associated with it. And so they're trying to get enough to say, okay, is it worth taking the test or should I just do the thing?
Yeah.
Cleaning is cleaning. Like there's levels of cleaning, right? So you can get rid of a lot with a really deep clean. Now, if you have sources, that's a different thing. You want someone to start with that. But that whole dynamic or that tension between understanding what, is it the chicken or the egg? Well, like, what do we do first as far as those actions?
Right.
We're there to help define that and give them an order of things as well as prioritize, and then it's a balance. How sensitized is that client? What are they experiencing? And try to say, okay, well, in this case, what's our worst source point? Is it the water damage over here that's dormant? And is it actually getting to you and it's trapped or whatever? Or is it the ductwork or is it the carpet? Is it Fluffy that just came in from outside? Whatever. And trying to balance all that out and then put it in order with data and the investigation, it's tricky.
It is. It can be tricky.
Yeah. But it's fun for me, so I'm just kind of nerdy like that, I guess. In our industry, we have the home inspectors, right? Which we know those guys, right? The real estate industry. I'll leave that there. Medical, HVAC guys, the builders. I mean, we have so many different professions of industry that affect or that we have to deal with what we do. And there's different types of tensions, and sometimes it's multiple that we're involved with because everybody's got their angle on how they look at things. see things or their opinions on things, their own experience. Just like our clients, they all have their own experience. And then their opinion either weighs in and affects our clients sometimes, or the internet, which we'll get into. All of those things create a tension for us to have to manage and have to bring some clarity to and kind of steer it. So it's just like we're getting flooded and we're trying to steer the water in the right direction, right? It just seems like there's just so many different elements of that we have to sort of steer them to health, right? Or a healthy outcome. What do you guys see with those in any specific industries that you have examples of where you've had that tension that you've had to manage?
Yeah, I think the tension exists with everybody we interact with. Not that it's a good or a bad thing, but
right.
When you're working with the real estate agent, there's certain needs, desires, information that they're trying to get out of an inspection, testing, right? When you're working with someone who has health issues, that's completely different than getting a call from a builder, right? And so there's different things that a customer or a client wants out of you, and so you have to be able to communicate that. It all goes back to building a hypothesis and figuring out what's going on, and then communicating that information to your client in the way that they're looking for it.
Yeah.
Right. Because usually it's not black and white, and I think that's probably some stuff we're going to end up talking about. This isn't a black and white thing. We form a hypothesis based on the evidence, and we follow the evidence to support the hypothesis or to deny the hypothesis, essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say, we're scientists when it comes down to it. Looking at homes and, like you said, developing a hypothesis and letting the data, either prove us wrong or prove us right. And then we kind of, follow it where it leads us. I definitely see some tension with new construction on how they're deciding to build homes. A real major pain point for me currently is the sealed attic spaces. And the issues that arise from that.
So many arguments. Well, we're fighting the energy guys.
True.
Right? It's that energy and the health. It's in total, just by the nature of what they're trying to do, it's in total contrast. We have to find a balance with that.
We have to
try to create a balance with it.
Yeah, and I mean, I definitely prefer a traditionally vented attic space. I don't think that the introduction of spray foam insulation is necessary. It used to be seen as like the gold standard for all insulation applications, and it has a purpose, but I don't think it should be used in an attic at all.
Well, we're chasing money. That's what we do as humans. We chase money. We have greed. It's just human nature, right? Which is not a bad thing, but it's the how. Like, what's that application we try to implement to save that money? What are the effects of that? Mm-hmm. The effects of that from a health standpoint is always, and we don't build for health, we build for energy. Mm-hmm. So we're always going to have a job, until we help people understand the value of the health. I think that's changing a little bit.
Sure.
We're gaining a little bit of ground. But if we can help bring awareness, right, to all these things, then we want people minded, both from a building industry standpoint, a real estate standpoint, which I think is, sometimes problematic. You would hope that everybody is as ethical as we are in their industry, so that we're all thinking about, safety, health, all of those things for people. But again, everybody chases money, and then what's the motive for their argument? Then is okay, well, obviously everybody's motivated by money to some degree, but we have to say, okay, we're all going to make money. Our provision is what it is. As long as we're honest, as long as we're consistent, we can all make a living, right? Yeah. But that tension that's there, that I think is so hard to manage, it becomes skewed when you have these other motivations, and then you have to bring the science in to kind of just let the numbers speak, because the numbers don't lie, people do. Right? Yeah. That's what I say all the time. The numbers don't lie. It's okay, what do I do with it? But that's the part of where these other industries come in that I think is so challenging, I think. And we spend hours on the phone with everybody. I don't know. Real estate alone, let's just throw that industry and into the mix and say, what are some scenarios that you would see, good or bad?
I'd say the time constraint with the inspection window is difficult to manage, or creating the right expectation for buyers and real estate agents. It's just not always feasible for us to get there within that 10-day inspection window as much as we'd want to. And also cost on inspection, what they're trying to identify with the inspection or the assessment.
Yeah.
Again, every house has its own individual need as far as testing's concerned. And if they're just wanting to like check off a box for just screening the home for air quality, I mean, that's totally fine, and that's feasible and doable, and that can be done relatively quickly. But if you want to get more granular with it, it's going to take more time.
And the sensitivities of these clients, I think, is driving that industry, creating a tension within their industry because they want more information. And the agents don't know how to manage that because they're not educated on it. It, again, complicates their process. They have to work harder and, choose to get a good network of people that they can trust to give them good information so that they can make decisions based off of that. Usually when we're called in, it's after a home inspection already has happened.
Right.
Unless, it's coupled with it depending on your business model and who you're involved with. But, you're 5 days in already. And then they may have another 5, and then we have to schedule it. Then we have, hopefully we get there in time. And then if we can't get there in time, they either make an extension or they're, calling Joe Schmo down the street to check the box.
Right.
Which happens,
It does. Well,
Yeah.
then you have, downtime. It's not like a home inspection where you can turn the report out same day.
Yeah.
We have to wait for lab results. Some days
Yeah.
it's 2 days. Some days it's 14 days, depending on the testing that you're having done. So that's a major pain point.
Interpretation of those lab results.
Definitely.
Let's talk about that.
Sometimes the customer doesn't like the interpretation.
Sure.
Or the
Agent doesn't like it.
Yeah.
Since we're in the real estate side.
Yeah. So, I mean, talking about the real estate industry, oftentimes it'll slow down or even inhibit a transaction. And so that's the last thing we want to do, but we have to present the information as it is, not as we want it to be. And so, sometimes there's a pressure difference between what the results say and maybe what someone's looking for.
Yeah. That goes right to, which it just kind of hit me, that goes right to, okay, baseline. What do you guys do? Do you guys do outside testing at all? Do you do it all the time? Do you do it sometimes? Do you get into that? And that argument is a lot of that, especially in the home inspection industry, they use that as the gold standard. Like, that's okay. If it's better than outside, you're fine.
I do an outside comparison sample if it hasn't been raining. Raining will scrub the air and make it where you have a lower count outside. I think there's a utility in that because every environment is a little bit different.
Yeah.
But there's still the thresholds just that we know as people in the industry that interior air quality should not surpass. And if there's a handful of different mold genera that are present in air samples, then we kind of know what circumstances had caused those to be present. As far as like tape lifts or surface samples, we can look at those. Man, there's, condition
Pretty
1, 2, or
straight up.
3.
Yeah.
Like it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
As far as baselines.
What about you?
Yeah, no, I like to do outdoor air control samples as well. There are ranges, as Cody was saying, that we use, and then the toxigenic molds or the mycotoxin producing molds, if those are present, in any significant count, it's, game over for that. But I like to use the outdoor control as the baseline under most situations. I do have customers that are occasionally like, hey, I don't want that. I don't really care what's outside. And I try to explain what that's used for and how it's the baseline and how it prevents a false positive. Most people go with it, but some of my customers, they don't want it.
Yeah. And I think that's an argument in our industry. And it's interesting to see where different people are at in their business model with it. We don't do it. We do it on occasion. I'll say that. But we want to be specific why we're doing it, because if I'm going to get that data, I don't want that data to be dictated by my client, an agent, because they're going to look at it and they're going to check us with other people or what it says online, right? well, it says blah, 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 and I'm like, no, you hire me to interpret those lab results. So if I give them more ammunition, right? I treat it the way I like to do it is to say, okay, if I need that data, if it's going to be litigation, if it's going to be, and we're doing like a full assessment of a house, again, with our business model, we have those three things. We have the small, localized, we have a baseline, and then we have a full assessment, right? If I'm in full assessment and I'm doing a lot of things for them, we'll throw that absolutely in there because it's another data point that's valuable to what we're doing. But usually in a baseline, finances dictate some of that. That's another sample, and if you're at whatever your price point is per sample, it's another expense. If I have an area in a house that can be the baseline, like a common area that maybe looks pretty good, then that becomes my baseline. If I know that room is clean, unless I have a hit everywhere on something that shouldn't be there, that's mycotoxin related, or I had numbers, because I know I do at least quarterly outside samples. I know what's going on in the season, roughly, even though it's not indicative to every house. So I kind of have a little bit of a wider stance, and it helps me get more. If they're going to spend that money, I'm going to get another sample inside the house on an area of concern based off their budget. Because so many people in that middle range on baseline is they're very budget conscious.
Yeah.
So it's just the way we do things. So right or wrong. And so I tell people, like, if you want one, we'll do one, but it's so much a sample, right? And there's a lot of people that argue that both ways. I think the customers, I have a lot of tell me, hey, how come you didn't do a blah, blah, blah? Well, where did you want to be in your budget?
Yeah, I haven't had too much pushback on that.
I get that a lot.
On the initial phone call, I kind of told them, pricing, and this is just our standard on how we do things, dependent on the weather, obviously.
Yeah.
And I haven't had much pushback on that, honestly. How do you dictate whether you take an exterior control or not? Is it just dependent on like potential litigation or
the scenario? If we think it's going to be helpful, and it's usually when I come back, because
Okay.
either we've done a front end where it's limited and everything's dirty,
Sure.
and it's like, okay, we need a baseline now,
Yeah, you had something pop in an area you thought that was potentially clean.
right? Or there's sensitivities,
Sure.
or there's other people involved, like a renter in a landlord situation. It just depends.
Yeah.
Or it's a full assessment, again, where we're bringing out all the big guns and then we're going to take that outside sample. But again, I think that's a choice. I don't think that standard, even though that's argued in the community, I don't think that standard has to happen everywhere. But some people value it more than others, so I don't think it's wrong or right. But a good conversation either way, I think, for people to understand that, Let's talk about, we just got a few more minutes here, but overall philosophy. It sounds like we're looking at the whole house. We understand that there's tensions in the industry between different facets of, again, the construction industry, home builders, real estate agents, the medical community, which we haven't even really touched on that side of it yet. We'll do in the next episode, I think. But managing those tensions, I think, is such a big thing in what we do. Again, expectation and understanding the limitations of what we do. Everybody thinks that, especially on the real estate side or even the construction side, we take an air sample. It's like, okay, we're mold free. Did we check the box? No. Nothing's mold free. Number one, just kids at home. Mold's everywhere. All right, so just you got to deal with it. But outside of that is setting those expectations to say, hey, we're just going to let you know if something's actionable or not. Is it normal ecology? Is it outside of that? Why? And then getting to the root of the issues. Mm-hmm. And the fact that we all share that same philosophy, I think, is one of the reasons why I wanted you guys to be here, because we've had conversations on the phone a little bit, mm-hmm. And I so appreciate the way you guys approach things, because I think there's a lack of a standard in the industry because we're not a regulated state, which is, there's good and bad with that. And because I think other industries try to get into this that are not educated in a scientific process, understanding the biology of the building, understanding the holistic approach and the science to how pressure works, any of those things that are related to the function of a living thing, if you will. We just treat the house like a person. That's the way we look at it.
Yeah.
We got that temple and we got this temple, right? And all the principles are the same, So I think just being able to manage those tensions, I think, is so important, and I so appreciate you guys. The way you're approaching things, I think, is just going to help this industry a lot. So I really appreciate it. Any final thoughts? We
Not
got
necessarily.
we got a whole other episode. I'm getting the weeds with.
There's a few things that you just in closing that piqued my ideas, but that we can talk about in the next episode.
Okay,
that I'm
sounds
looking
great.
forward to. Yeah.
Well,
thanks
you guys
for having us out. And,
absolutely,
it's been a
you
great
guys are
conversation.
awesome. Check them out. All right, if you're in Nashville area, we've got Tennessee mold inspectors, and we've got IAQTN. All right, check out Ryan and Cody. See you.